Hello class, welcome to lesson 2.1, integers and absolute value. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to compare and order integers and find the absolute value of an expression. Let's start off by talking about some vocabulary for this lesson. So an integer is any number on the number line. So that does not include any of those decimals or fractions. It's only those whole numbers, but it can be positive or negative, okay? A positive integers are any numbers greater than 0, and a negative integer is any number that's less than 0. Okay, so integers are kind of like the counting numbers if you include the negatives, okay? Absolute value is the distance a number is from 0 on the number line. Okay, so absolute value, the distance a number is from 0. All right, so let's practice writing some integers. So if I see the words $200 deposit, I want to think to myself, is that going to be a positive $200 or is that a negative $200? Some of you might not know what deposit means. This means that you put money into the bank. Okay, so if you're putting money into the bank, you are positive $200. If I were to say withdraw $200, it would be negative. You're taking it away. Okay, but deposit means you're putting money into the bank. 50 degrees below 0. Below, that's going to be a negative 50. So that's how I would write those two integers. I'd have a positive 200 or a negative 50. Why don't you go ahead and write an integer for a loss of 12 yards? Good luck. Hopefully you came up with letter B as the correct answer. Loss is going to imply that it's a negative number. Okay, so that loss tells us that it's negative. Why don't you try one more? Write an integer for 15 feet above sea level. Above implies that it's going to be positive. So letter A, positive 15, or you can just write it 15. We don't typically write a plus sign in front of positive numbers. That's pretty rare. We usually just go with a regular 15 because most numbers that we talk about, we usually mean the positive version, okay? Now what if I asked you to compare two integers? So we want to write two true math sentences using integers -3 and +4. So if I wanted to write two true math sentences using integers -3 and 4, I'm going to look and I'm going to see, okay, I have a -3, +4. Which one's bigger? Which one is bigger, -3 or +4? +4 is bigger. So I could write 4 is greater than -3, or I could write -3 is less than +4. Those would both be two true math sentences, okay? 4 is greater than -3, or I could flip it around and say -3 is less than 4. Okay, and then let's go down and look. We want to replace that little gray box with less than, greater than, or equal to in order to make the statement true. So we have a 4, +4, we have a -12. So which one's bigger? Is the +4 bigger or is the -12 bigger? The +4 is bigger. So I'm going to say 4 is greater than -12. Quick reminder on these symbols. They're called inequality symbols, and they always open towards the bigger number. Some of you, when you were younger, learned to think about them as an alligator eating the most food he possibly can, the bigger number. I'm okay with that if you need that idea in order to remember which way to draw to have it open. All right, now it's your turn to try. Use the integers graphed on the number line below and write two inequalities involving -4 and +1. Good luck. Hopefully you ended up at letter A. We have -4 is less than 1, or we have 1 is greater than -4. Both of those are correct. Go ahead and try one more. Use the integers graphed on the number line below and replace the circle with less than, greater than, or equal to in 6 circle, -7, to make a true sentence. So which symbol needs to go between those two numbers? Hopefully you said that 6 is greater than a -7, so you chose letter B. All right, now let's practice comparing integers and ordering them. So when we order integers from least to greatest, we're going through and we're comparing things over and over. So let's start by plotting these numbers. So if I have a 9, I'm going to look at the number line and find 9, so I'll put a dot there. I have a -3, find -3, put a dot there. Then I have a 6, put a dot at 6, a dot at -7, a dot at 4, and a dot at -5. So these are all points on the number line. I probably should have been saying points instead of dot. These are all points on the number line. So if I were to order them from least to greatest, now that they're on a number line, it's really easy because I just start from the left and move my way right. Okay, so the first number that I have is -7, then -5, -3, 4, 6, and 9. They are ordered least to greatest now. Okay, so if you need a number line in order to order them for the first few times, I'm okay with that. But as you do this more and more, you're going to become more familiar with how these numbers work, and you will be able to eventually do this without using a number line. And that's what I want you guys to work towards. But until you get to that point, feel free to use a number line. So I start with -7. That's the smallest number I have. I know, excuse me, it can be a little confusing because you say, well, that's a 7, and isn't 7 bigger than 5? Well, remember, negative numbers are backwards or opposite of positive numbers. So the bigger the number is with the negative symbol, the smaller that number actually is. All right, now I want you to try this next problem. It's about football. The yards gained during the first 6 plays of a football game were 5, -3, 12, -9, 6, and -1. Order the yards from least to greatest. Good luck. Hopefully you ended up with letter D, which was -9, -3, -2, or sorry, -9, -3, -1, 5, 6, and 12. All right, now let's practice finding the absolute value. So absolute value is the distance from 0. The distance a number is from 0. So if I were to write a 6 on a number line, so here's 0, here's 6, and I want to know how far 6 is from 0. Well, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the absolute value of 6 is 6. These, I forgot to mention, are our absolute value symbols, okay? As soon as you see 2 vertical bars up and down, that means absolute value. Now let's talk about what's the absolute value of -6. Is it -6? If -6 is right here, how far is -6 from 0? I have to travel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, something you might notice, the absolute value of 6 is 6. The absolute value of -6 is still 6. That's because the absolute value is distance. We can never travel a negative distance, can we? And for those of you that are thinking, well, if you just go backwards, that's not negative distance. That's just you walking backwards. You're still traveling a certain amount of feet or miles or however you measure distance. Distance is always positive. Absolute value is always positive. It's always the positive version of the number. Okay, so then if we look at this, we have the absolute value of negative 121. I don't want to draw a number line for that and count each space. I just know that it has to be the positive version of the number I'm given. So I'm given a negative 121. My absolute value is a positive 121. If I was given the absolute value of a positive 121, my answer is still 121. It doesn't switch it to negative. It keeps it positive, okay? Absolute value is always positive. Now let's look at this next one. It's a little bit different. I have the absolute value of a negative 16. So I'm going to leave that 19 plus there. And I'm going to say, what is the absolute value of 16? The absolute value of 16, negative 16, sorry. The absolute value of negative 16 is a positive 16. So I'm going to write that right there. And now I have 19 plus 16, which gives me 35. All right, why don't you guys go ahead and evaluate the absolute value of negative 9. Hopefully you wound up at a positive 9. Because remember, absolute value is always the positive version of the number in the absolute value symbols. All right, why don't you evaluate the absolute value of negative 9 plus the absolute value of 2. Hopefully you wound up at a positive 11 because you said the absolute value of negative 9 is 9 and the absolute value of 2 is 2. 9 plus 2 gives us 11. All right, now let's practice using absolute value in an expression with a variable. So I see that I have an x variable right here that I'm going to replace with a negative 2. So I'm going to say 18 plus the absolute value of negative 2. I'm going to keep that 18 and I'm going to get rid of my absolute value. What is the absolute value of negative 2? The absolute value of negative 2 is just 2. So my answer is 20. So that's how I solve that first one. Now let's try another one. We have 10 minus the absolute value of x if x equals 5. So 10 minus what's the absolute value of 5? 5. So I'm going to say 10 minus 5 is 5. And that is my answer for the second one. I just have one more problem for you to try on your own before you switch over to doing the homework assignment. Good luck. Hopefully for this last problem, you said 5 minus the absolute value of 9. The absolute value of 9 is 9. So now I have 5 minus 9, because I just carry that subtraction symbol down. 5 minus 9 is negative 4. So hopefully you ended up with letter D. If you have any questions at all on this problem or anything else from the lesson, please be sure to ask. I am more than happy to help. You can also ask a friend. Can email me questions. Just make sure you get your questions answered, okay? Have a great day.